You want to dig into this dog and pony show?
Yeah, we got 2 episodes to cover, so better jump.
Yeah, I definitely feel like covering this a little more casually than some of the shows that we cover, but we'll just see how it goes.
All right.
Welcome to this episode of the Prestige-ish Media Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Lake, and with me is someone that always hides his keys under the frowny face rock. It's Dan McNair. Dan, how are you this evening?
I only do that in the name of Tom Osborne or whoever you worship.
Now, is that your skate key or for your key parties that you're always going to? What do the keys go to?
The keys go to the laundry room is all. Not very exciting.
So we're here to talk about Lanterns. It's a two-parter. We actually kind of both had scheduling conflicts last week, and so we'll start on week two. I will preface this by saying that I am a DC guy, and I like James Gunn's Guardian of the Galaxy is one of my favorite Marvel movies. But me and you have talked about sometimes too much of anyone can be a certain thing. Like Tim Burton, I love some of Tim Burton stuff, and then sometimes it can be too much Tim Burton. And we love a good dick joke here, but sometimes it can be too James Gunn. And so I was very cautious going into this. The original description that we kind of heard when we were getting the log line that got me closer to covering this show was like True Detective with lanterns. But then they also said maybe a comedy, which it doesn't feel too heavy on the comedy side yet. And so that at least piqued my interest. Lindelof, who is a Lost guy, is one of the showrunners on the show. So that should have piqued your interest.
He also did the Leftovers and that Watchmen reboot, I want to say.
Yes, he was definitely involved in those. And so from that aspect, the first trailer, my hopes were pretty low, but I did hear the show was getting a lot of positive feedback. It seemed like the second trailer was maybe a little better. I think this was about as good as I could have hoped for. We'll do episode one first, but do you have thoughts and ratings on episode one?
I know even less about this universe than you do. Everything that I know about Green Lantern is on a casual, distant basis. I know the names of a couple of them. I remember he was one of the super friends when I was a kid. So I don't have a lot of points of reference and I do have a lot of questions. But I really enjoyed the first episode. I would say pleasantly surprised is the category I fall into. I liked the different time jumps that they did, but I also like previewing the second one that they don't get stuck in time jumping as a crutch. I could see that sort of editing works for me, but I could see somebody like a Jessica Z being like, "Huh, what? Wait, when are we? I don't get it." I gave the first episode a 8.3.
Okay, and I've got the first episode at an eight. It's weird. We've gotten this a lot. It seems like the last year there was like a false report that it was like the first episode was like an hour and 31 minutes or something. And as I was like catching up watching today, I was like, how? Yeah, it wasn't as long as I thought. And I will bury the lead on the second episode. Second episode, I didn't do a time check at all. In the end, actually surprised me. This one felt like a full length episode. I think also you're getting into so many new things. So the title is called Pilot. Dan, do you think the pilot name is because there is a pilot, or is this, can we say it's an actual pilot
Why
this
every
time?
show that has a pilot episode named Pilot, is there an actual pilot now? I think they're all conspiring, all the shows.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely funny. So yeah, I have a little more knowledge. I feel like I read a little bit of, I think it was Jeff Johns' Lantern run, maybe around the 08s, so 10s that I read late. There were a few animated shows that I tried to get into, both movies and shows. I thought there were a lot of good parts about the Green Lantern movie. I know that sounds wrong, but maybe you can just appreciate this part. Obviously, it's obvious. It's hard to see Ryan Reynolds as anyone else but Deadpool. But when you see that this is a middle-aged Hal Jordan and you imagine a younger, kind of smart-ass, confident Hal Jordan, like Ryan Reynolds played that very well for me. And so I thought it was unfortunate that there were some things that didn't work out, but there was like a lot of baby with the bathwater with the first Green Lanterns movie. There were,
So I've cleared a lot of that from my consciousness. My takeaway is that the special effects were terrible.
yeah, I think there
And
were some challenges there. Go ahead.
and so that actually, in watching what's supposed to be like a blockbuster movie, and it seemed like maybe some of the special effects were a couple years behind instead of cutting edge. I got hung up on that when you're visiting a universe where you want to be immersed in all these crazy visuals, and it felt very much like a college art film or something.
Yeah, I think it more was like having the time and budget to finish visuals, which Marvel has half-assed on about 10 films since then. So I think for its time, it was a little more shocking, but I think since then, many of them perform badly, but it's kind of how Nintendo used to never release a video game till it was completely finished. They still mainly do that. Many people put out the game and update the effects later, kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
even Disney has actually done that on some things where they've updated the graphics later. So, with that said, yeah, I think the other thing that movie made a big mistake of is, and hopefully the show doesn't, but Sinestro is a pretty cool character in Lanterns. I forget who the guy was that was playing him in the movie, but he played a really good Sinestro. And this Sinestro is actually seems pretty appealing. You see him at the end of episode 2. I think the first movie held that card back too long. And then this show has jumped ahead of it when Green Lantern and Sinestro, like telling that story is probably one of the better stories Green Lantern has to tell. So curious how that pans out, but we will see. So we're talking about this pilot. So you talk about timeline jumps, and your boy Lindelof is definitely no stranger to those or to telling backstories of characters. And so we start at 1996 with a young Jon Stewart watching 60 Minutes. His dad is in the Marines. He's not supposed to be watching the show. He comes home early. You think he's going to get a belt, but from not too long ago, we got the old William Tell in 2 episodes recently on HBO, no less. Has your dad ever shot an apple off the top of your head, Dan?
Surprisingly not. No, my dad's not that type of a dad, but he did give him a hoorah, that's for sure.
I am actually surprised my dad didn't William tell me more. I'm like, of all the things that have happened, I can't really say. No, I'm not saying my dad would have done it with a gun, but I feel having me stick an apple in my mouth and throw a baseball off of it or something could have been done, but I luckily escaped that fate.
Yeah, maybe he'd fling an axe or something like that.
I think they talk about him getting the ring near Victoria Falls, maybe. I'm not sure about that. Obviously, Hal Jordan was an Air Force veteran. So they use the 60 minutes to give us a little bit of background on Hal Jordan. And then we get the big thing with him saying that the reason the ring chose him, I guess, because he wasn't afraid.
Yeah, he
I,
had no fear.
and so we see the dad training the son, and or when he shoots the apple off, or before he says, "Are you afraid?" and he says, "No, sir." So, what do you think's going on with the dad? I think there's more than meets the eye because he calls the dad later, and the dad's talking him through getting the ring. We know that Lindelof is a mystery box kind of guy. Do you think there's more than meets the eye with the dad?
There definitely could be. At face value, we're just led to believe that dad's a mean military guy and you don't want to be caught watching TV when he comes home or something like that. And this is definitely a unique situation, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a sucker punch of something else in the ingredients.
Playing the foosball behind your daddy's back. There was definitely a Jackson vibe going on where you thought
I
Joe
just watched the
Jackson was.
Michael music movie last night. Yeah.
I It's been a while for me since I watched the old. It used to be on, I think on VH1. They used to do the Michael Jackson story about every summer for a few hours, and I'd rewatch it, the old mini series, but I haven't seen the movie. But I definitely was expecting Joe to come in there and beat some collective ass, but was not expecting the old apple on the head trick.
And our dude from Euphoria, just the prestigious together, plays Joe Jackson in that movie.
How about that? We get some taco stand training. You're a big mystery no marked car lord. Was that a Buick or what was that thing?
Had I been taking notes, I might have noted it, but it was definitely an older model car. It had seen better days, and you can tell that Hal isn't investing all his Green Lantern money in slick rides. He's not got
Green
the great whip collection.
his Green Lantern crypto. So he basically jumps out the car and tells him he'll meet him at a taco stand. So John Stewart has to, I guess he creates bubble wrap and starts walking to his destination. I think that's where his dad calls. He meets the hologram, I guess is what he ends up calling it, but it's Hal from 10 years ago. Once again, definitely some time stuff going on. In Are we in time now? Is this 2016?
Yes, yeah, this is 2016. We've been to 1996. And then we see a Hal that presumably was relevant in 2006 in the hologram.
Okay, so we're getting 10-year jumps across the board. The hologram tells him there's hail in Rushville, which ends up being code for aliens. He ends up rushing ahead. John Stewart's got to fly there. He gets to the crime scene. I think it's 6 or 7 hours behind him. And there's four dead aliens and one kind of roaming around in short sleeves. And there's this battle over jurisdiction. How is the sheriff doing for you, the female sheriff in this show? I think they call her Miss Sheriff and various things. They don't dial in her name a lot, but she's got a lot of nicknames. Go ahead.
She's been back and forth for me a lot. Overall, I would call it a plus. There's a little bit of Fargo going on with her, some Frances McDormand. Sometimes I think her delivery is a little bit too, I'm trying to be the boss. But all in all, I think the guy that plays Hal kind of saves the dynamic and it works in the end.
Yeah, and he definitely reminds me a little bit of Stephen Dorff's True Detective character. Like,
Okay.
there is a little probably same age and Dorfiness to it, but the we obviously on this podcast, I think, are generally big True Detective type fans, and so whenever they're doing that vibe well, I think the show is working pretty well, and I think it does a pretty good job of that in the first two episodes. So eventually, the one is on the run, and Hal, I think you see some negatives of Hal training him, which would be just throwing him to the wolves in the car, but he also allows John Stewart to go on the football field and make that mistake, and he flushes out the one alien that's left, and he doesn't just bail him out, and it doesn't seem malicious in every case. And in some cases, it does seem like that's him trying to train him, while in other cases, it's a little forced. What did you make of that dynamic?
I'm not of the generation that's training has to be all like touchy-feely and good and happy and positive all the time. What I really appreciate about this dynamic is us as a viewer are learning about this universe, these rules, the players, and how it works along with Jon Stewart. So he's not getting a lot of straight answers all the time, and they're doing a good job of holding a couple of cards behind their back. And that alludes to the mystery box nature that you were talking about. So as I'm watching this, they're like, okay, file away. I need to know what that means. I need to figure this part out. And coming into it as somebody without the backlog of information about this universe, there can be quite a bit of it, but it's not so much that it makes me feel like I don't know what's going on.
We get a little bit of the background story with Abin Sur, who I think traditionally, everything I know, that's the basic story of the alien dying and the ring gravitating towards him, or him finding the alien dying and last words and say the blackest day, darkest night, yada yada, dog and pony show. So I feel because of this, and there's a lot here, and there could be a lot of Chekhov's Abin Sur, but I feel like every time he's telling the story of how he's got the ring, that there's like another shoe to drop there that we don't have that full story either. And I guess it's the second episode where they're kind of questioning like what happened with Abin Sur and the Manhunter, which I mean, I assume we're to assume it's Martian Manhunter in the DC universe would be, so they're painting Manhunters as like this bad human or planet eating
Like a
alien
Thanos
culture.
character, like the
Yeah,
worst thing that could happen.
I think traditionally, like they are like an eater of resources or worlds in my idiot brain, but Martian Manhunter being the last one obviously ends up in the Justice League and is like the last one on Earth. And I think there is a plan. There's some tragic Superman-esque story of the whole planet was destroyed except for him, and so he hides among us. And so there's definitely something going on there as well, which is interesting. So just like setting that, I think there, like you said, there are definitely a few cards being held behind the back there. What do you know the name of the bicycle song that he played at the juice jukebox, or the skating song, or what is
I
that
did
song?
not mark. Oh, the one that he just kept playing on repeat in the bar.
Yeah, yeah, on the
That
jukebox.
goes back before my time, I'm afraid, but it seemed to piss off all the locals, that's for certain.
It's like I like to ride my bicycle, but I think it's something skating, and I don't know. If you had to play a jukebox song to annoy people, but maybe you would also wouldn't mind hearing it four times, what would you play?
Song two.
That's an interesting choice. I would probably go Fat Bottom Girls, and it's a little bicycle related too. So there's some synergy between the song played, but
Yeah, there's probably a lot in the Queen catalog that could do that, where one or two listens, you're good, and then by the fifth, you're ready to cut a person.
Fat Bottom Girls is definitely my jukebox go-to, and not a big Queen guy, shockingly. So his thought was he was going to get put in the cell next to the alien. I kind of like that the show didn't just make it that easy. You know what I mean? I think the show's showing, like you talked about, some of the stuff with the sheriff could be too corny, but they are protecting against that a little bit too. Any thoughts there?
No, I do agree. Hal is your hero, and a lot of times they really want to establish right off the bat that these people are infallible. And the fact that he seems to have not only some flaws, but also the core of a good idea that he doesn't carry out right. And in the end, even though his hunch or he talks about his gut might be right, the follow through isn't always dead on.
So, dad of the Miss Sheriff's husband, his wife is at the bar. We don't know that it's his wife. I guess relevant that she's Indian and that we get like a white privilege conversation the next episode.
So
Go ahead.
basically, Jon Stewart winds up with her in the car.
Right.
And I'm just going to blow open my theory corner here.
Okay.
Apparently, when I watched it originally, I told Sabrina he's banging an alien.
Yes.
And then I forgot about that comment until she reminded me just tonight when we were watching it. And I think I might not even know what's going on, but have some interesting reads on this.
Yeah, I think it's Chekhov's Alien, probably. I do have it noted as that being my first reaction too. I think because of that, it's too obvious. It would be funny if the big guy in town who hated aliens was an alien the whole time. But I also don't know like how he would get a kid with an alien. There's many things to sort out, but maybe that's his second family. Go ahead.
Another thing that I want to mention, casting of the husband of the sheriff, the guy that shows up to bail Hal out of court. Did
Yes.
you mark who that is?
I did look it up. It's Jason Ritter, who is
Yeah.
Melanie Linsky's husband. Barf gagged me with a spoon across the board.
I would much
Uh,
rather see Kristen Ritter in this role.
I would rather see Kaylee Kuko, or however you pronounce her name, who was his daughter on the show he died on. And I didn't know who she was at the time, but I was watching the show because of that in my teenage years. So yeah, I think interesting. I think John's the actor playing Jon Stewart does a generally good job. I think he looks like Jon Stewart. One of my initial issues with the show is I really like Hal Jordan as a character, so I kind of want to see Hal Jordan before I see Jon Stewart, kind of thing. And this felt a little rushed. It definitely had leaked that he was going to die in the first episode, but we're definitely getting some timeline stuff. So maybe that allows for more Hal Jordan than I figured we'd at least get the season of him, and maybe that's all we get. But at least there is enough Hal Jordan, maybe. So just throwing a lot of things out there. But I think the guy playing Jon Stewart does a pretty good job. But he's a vegan. He's like not drinking. But she does ask if there's like an issue with cigarettes in the truck. I think it like generally that he's straight laced, but I don't know that it all does everything for me. We get the delivery of the line on like the vegan and eating off another man's grill type of thing.
Right.
I didn't know if we were going to get, oh, I tricked you into eating beef or something. So just kind of interesting. But to your point, Jason Ritter kind of helps bail him out of jail, and that sets up the meeting with the father. What are their names? Are they like Mikos or Mikors or some stupid thing?
Not jotted down, to be honest with you.
But he kind of reminds me of the guy who died from Euphoria, but younger,
Okay, yeah,
Eric
I could see
Dane,
that.
like a younger Eric Dane, but he has an NDA, so he's like not tipping his hand. I feel like they're pretty young, like grandma and grandpas in this story. We meet the son of the cop. I think I don't mind seeing like a husband and wife be split up by Hal Jordan, but maybe not if they have a kid, you know what I mean? The kid kind of complicates that a little bit. They have this, I guess it's like a compound, and later learn how into identifying and targeting aliens they are. But to me, a militia seems like a rough go against aliens if they evade. What did you make of the character and the ranch and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, suddenly this whole thing took on a Yellowstone turn, and it was reminiscent in some ways of that, just being in that part of the country and a lot of guns and fences and stuff like that. It's an interesting character. I think not too mustache twirly, as you might call it. Obviously, between like the sheriff, her husband, the dad, the wife, the teaching the grandson how to throw a football, there's a lot of layers to the relationships here, and I think that could be interesting if played right.
So his big thing is that he doesn't want to be colonized. We're getting some the boys catchphrases being thrown around, but I don't think anything's too heavy yet. But as we end up where Hal Jordan is finally able to interrogate the one suspected alien, he smokes him out by asking him questions. So he knew all the Nebraska football questions, but didn't have a high opinion of Obama as president, and then, or didn't have an opinionated opinion of him
Yeah.
as president, and then started asking him where Harry Potter went to school, which was, I think, a school named after your mom, actually, Hogwarts. But so, yeah, we get out of that guy eventually that they came there for the opposite of peace, war. I think they mentioned vengeance. He blows up, and Hal Jordan protects him best he can, but the ring's dying. And eventually we get a Hal Jordan 10 years later dead on the frozen football field. What do you got out of these two batches of info here?
I thought it ended strong. The really interesting thing to me was, yeah, it's 2026. The sheriff calls Jon Stewart back. Hal seems just frozen and dead, and the bleachers, he's not wearing the ring.
Correct.
And when John goes to kind of check, John's not wearing the ring either.
Correct.
So that was my takeaway that was interesting. It seems like John's being set up as the successor, but obviously things didn't go that way.
Yes, and they do mention that in the after episode. And as I was trying the disclosure, as I watched the two episodes together, I had missed that taking notes, and so I was glad they mentioned that. So yeah, you're supposed to think, where's the ring? I like that in this case. Once again, we got the time jump because when you know a character is gonna die at the end of a season, I feel like it leaves you very less room to emotionally grab the viewer. But because we know it's 10 years later, I guess there's just more possibilities. While I fully expect they'll kill him at the end of this season and we'll jump to 2026 for the next season if it ever happens, it still feels like there's more possibilities for things to happen in between. It doesn't feel as predetermined. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, knowing where this is heading almost makes me really want to try and figure out the whodunit of it all. So I'll probably be biting at all the false clues and fake trails and stuff like that, but still trying to smoke out how we get from 2016 to 2026.
Now, when you say the who done of it all, you don't mean who done the alien. You mean
We
who
know it's
killed Hal
John Stewart.
Jordan. Episode 2 is Trust Fall. Initial thoughts and rating on that episode from this evening.
So, whereas the first one, kind of like I was mentioning earlier, was jumping all over the place, I'm glad that they just stuck to the same narrative and the same time frame, and really, for most of the episode, the same space. I think they opened up the universe at a good pattern of, okay, now we're going to show them this, now we're going to talk about that. And it was interesting. It created questions for me. It didn't make me confused or hard to follow, but I still do have a lot of questions. My rating on this, again, I gave it an 8.3, just like the previous episode. I think they followed up a solid episode with another solid episode.
Yeah, I think I might like the first one a little better, but the second one did move quicker. I've got them both as an 8, so we're both in line there with how we feel about them. I think they're staying at this kind of plain motel. John's gonna get his first flying lesson. He's gets water tossed on him, get out of bed, Junior, or whatever. He creates a bird that he is able to maintain throughout the whole episode so that they seem to point to it being a big deal to him and being a big deal in general. And I think we need to probably acknowledge both of those things, even though at the end of the episode he makes it disappear and acts like it didn't matter to him. I'm assuming it does or did. Any thoughts just on the bird or some of what we're starting with here?
Yeah, I don't know that I fully appreciate what it was about, but just in them telling us, the Italian mobster crew saying, how have you kept this thing sustained without a ring? Obviously, there's something special about John, and more questions, but it's interesting the ways that they have used the ring so far. It's been like for a counterfeit 20, a bottle opener, kind of a crummy, the little bird. They're not using it to its fullest potential other than to fly.
Yeah, I guess I would say early that I feel like they're using the ring running out of power thing. I don't know that that's my favorite bit, and you've got to go across the country to get the charger for the ring. That's probably not my favorite plot point. But with that said, what it does signify is if the ring can't work and John Stewart's keeping this construct existing, like not only away from the ring, but with a dead battery, that does bring up a lot more mystery box type questions.
I was just wondering
Um,
how he got it on an airplane.
the bird.
Yeah,
Is that a bird in your pants, or are you just happy to get through the security line?
bird dog and me.
So Hal jumps into the town hall. That's pretty awkward. I did enjoy, also very odd, but we get the weekend at Bernie's deal with all the alien bodies.
Did you pick up on the alien detector right away?
I did just because they made if anything, they got to it so quick. I think you had to, but I thought it was interesting that it wasn't going off for metal. And then when he brought the body through, it's even when he was going back, it's like, before it even goes through that this is an alien detector. Were you on that?
Yeah, I felt good that I was clicking with that. A question for you as more of a DC person. There's a lot of mention of the Guardians early on. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I know James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy, but I know that's not it. And I know it's not the Cleveland Guardians. So could you give me a thumbnail about the Green Lantern Guardians?
Yeah, it's like everything that DC ever did that Marvel rips off kind of everything. But I would start with the Guardians in the DC universe is like the only thing I don't know is if it's 7 or 12, but there's 12 alien talking heads that kind of are in charge of the Guardians. And so if like Hal Jordan blows up too many buses, that he's got to go before him and get pendants for his
Hat in
crimes
hand
across
and
the universe.
okay.
Yeah. And then eventually, obviously, they are like a governing body that I think this episode tips the hand that Sinestro, like, I guess, tried to have a coup against the leadership and ended up in prison. And so we see him, their version of Lantern prison. My understanding is Sinestro was always like a yellow lantern.
Okay, I remembered that from old cartoons, but
And I know I don't know how deep it goes back, but with like the Jeff Johns versions, I think the different characters represent different feelings. And so definitely forgive me, but right now, fear for green is obviously like not being afraid. I forget, like, I don't know if yellow is envy or what, but there's certain things tied to the other lantern colors, which I think there's yellow and red at least, and I think there was a black lantern that didn't go so well. I forget, but yeah, that's kind of the dog and pony
well, right
show.
now Hal Jordan would be the White Lantern and John Stewart would be the Black
I
Lantern.
don't think it works that way, Dan. And then that, I guess I will mention now that I think that's one of the other big controversies is I think typically you create your costume out of your ring. I think that's what the lore has more technically been. And this costume designer really wanted to show this weathered costume that shows he's been through the battle. But I think, real DC who's seen that is like offended by that. And it's like a dog whistle for how much do these guys really know and respect the source material. I get going a different direction, but it is definitely a little odd. And I'm not the type of person like where the Flash has the ring that his whole costume pops out of and he jumps into it. Like, I think that's one of the cheesiest things in the world. But with the Green Lanterns being like so tied to the ring, I think it very much would make sense that you would make your suit out of your ring, but I digress. So that's a thing that exists. I think the most James Gunnsian reference we get these two episodes is that it seems like in Superman and in Peacemaker, they've established these pocket dimensions. He's really big on these pocket dimensions. He wants to make sure we know they exist.
We know he's big on pocket cool.
And the lantern is in a pocket dimension. What did you make of his empty house and them calling him lonely? I think this is just generally how most single men live. But what was your take on the big house and all of that stuff, John? In the post episode, they mention him holding the outfit up as being like his childhood dream,
Yeah,
asking,
playing dress
having
up
it
with it.
mean more than what it means, kind of thing. I just kind of took it as what it was, but anything there?
Like I bought the premise for the lonely empty house. The thing I didn't really understand so much was Earl being like a derivative of the Little Shop of Horrors, the Feed Me Seymour moment in the greenhouse.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there's definitely a more direct comic reference there that I can't pull. I know there's the one plant or creature that makes Superman think that he's still back on his planet and his parents are still alive, and I think he keeps them in a case somewhere on Endor with the Wookiees. So I'm sure this is the Green Lantern version of that, but I'm sure he was like a more versed Green Lantern expert would have something for you there, but I do not. What did you make of the big John Stewart? Like, I would call them more less Italian and more like Eastern European, but this group of guys
The
that
Tony Shalhoubs.
not
It
Jews,
was
Dan,
it was a group of monks.
Eastern European. So this wasn't John Stewart's bat mitzvah, although we did see a penis. Unsure. It looked like it had been partially circumcised. Maybe we'll have to get Z, the penis expert, to really
I
give us
think when
the.
you're in that mortuary freezer, shrinkage could happen.
Yeah. So anyway, we've got kind of this whole thing that occurs. They never take the lantern. The lantern comes along. I'm confused how he can lose consciousness and keep the bird functional. That's one big question I have. And yeah, they seem to implant the memories of their people being destroyed by the manhunters. Is that what you take from it?
I thought it was interesting, like when we talk about cards being held behind the back, this is one like they didn't show us what John Stewart sees. So
Correct.
this Tony Shalhoub group, you're thinking they're like an alien race that's got it out for the manhunters?
Yeah, I believe that the manhunters either they could be not telling the truth, and it could be they're just trying to kill the last remaining manhunter. You know what I mean? Maybe that's the swerve. Is I think that's more of the story per se, that the manhunters planet was destroyed, but whatever it is, they're trying to track him down. And so, yeah, I guess we don't know what if the memories they've implanted in him are accurate or not, even.
I thought it was interesting. A lot of times you see like a high-speed chase on a highway. Dude chasing after another dude on foot while cars are crashing all around him would be more of a low-speed highway chase. But I thought that special effects wise, like they're not really holding back a ton. They're not going crazy, but they're doing all right. I don't really know what to make of the Tony Shalhoubs. So, but because they wear all black, we're supposed to think they're bad guys.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of car wrecks in the highway scene. I'm just thinking like he doesn't have fear, so he can run into oncoming traffic. Funny when the sheriff pulls over Hal with the bodies, eventually they're able to set up the meet cute with the dad again. Go ahead.
I think Hal's been listening to the podcast because we get like a Kaiser Soze reference. I think I made one of those like right at the end of, I don't know if it was House of the Dragon or what we were covering.
Yeah, you definitely did in the last few months for sure. I know that I guess that's the other mystery is who's the boss that's making him sign the NDA, right? And
Hmm.
who is that person tied to? So the aliens are giving John 48 hours to identify the manhunt. The Miss Sheriff is watching him sleep and starts asking about the deal with Sinestro. So that's the exposition we get there before we meet him at the end of the episode. We do find out she's from
She,
Gotham. Go ahead.
I was gonna say she makes it sound like, or maybe he reveals that, like you said earlier, Sinestro forms a coup. It seemed like Sinestro and Hal might have been friends, but
I
it
mean,
was
I
Hal
think
that took him down.
yeah, it is. They do say it's him who took him down. They do talk about the coop. I think that's like her wiki reading because she's tell me about him, and he's like, I won't. And then she's like, it's all right here. I'm telling you it. So why won't you tell me?
Okay.
I'll show you yours. You show me mine. But obviously, there's some things more than meet the eye here. Rebringing up, she's from Gotham. Don't know what that means other than just a universe point out.
You being the real Batman, did that give you a real boner or?
No, I think if I thought it was going to be anything noteworthy, but I think that could be something like we don't know her maiden name and maybe it's something gay that ties into universe, like it's Gordon or
Yeah,
something.
she's a Gordon.
And we haven't really gotten a lot of her name. Maybe she's like Barbara, whatever, and then it's oh, she's a Gordon or something stupid.
I wanted to ask you, he makes the Tom Osborne references. Are you familiar with Tom Osborne?
Not really.
He says in the name of Tom Osborne or whoever you guys worship. Um,
Yes.
Only because I lived in Omaha for 2 years that felt like 10. He coached the Nebraska Colts to their
Oh, okay. Okay,
uh,
I gotcha.
back-to-back 94, 95 championships and a long time before that. So just wanted to mention I got the reference.
Got it. Yeah, I think that was a name that I knew 20 years ago, but do not know now. And I was thinking more of Ozzy and the Green Goblin than I was. So there we are. Empty Hospital is another noted thing here.
That was
Like,
kind of weird. He's the only one to be signed out. Everything's like in bubble wrap still.
yeah, so that's something noticed. That chick, once again, the grandma is at the restaurant when Jon Stewart's there. He asks if she has an unconventional relationship, and we get the kind of white privilege talk, and they're talking about your white guy and my white guy. I get it.
That
I don't think it's needed, but okay.
I think there could be layers where she's like a manhunter
Well,
and
I definitely think there are layers to aliens and colonialism. And I think on the ranch, the guy's like, we don't need them on our country or something like
or
that,
the
or
previous
our
owners of this
world.
land didn't see the threat coming.
Yeah, so I get that there is multi-layered things going on here. I don't know that those give me a Gotham boner for the record. Those are more like mortuary droopers for me, but here we are. So we see Jon Stewart recharge the ring. He says the oath. We've got one oath per episode.
They do
And
seem really tied into the oath. I didn't know that about the Green Lantern character. That was such a big deal, but they're hitting that kind of hard.
yeah, I think the way they mentioned it was they wanted to get it into the first episode, and so they found a way to creatively do that. He does a quick pass here, so it's not really, I'm assuming it's really leading to a more rewarding, fully saying of the oath later, because this is just a kind of go through the motions, tell me when you're done, honey, kind of thing here.
Do yeah, do you? Yeah, you're married.
But yeah, he flies away to where I would assume is the headquarter of the Guardians to that point, and on this planet is where the jail is. And so I guess they're kind of Hannibal lecturing Sinestro here, where it's like, hey, Clarice, tell me about Jon Stewart, and I'll tell you about the other greatest threat. But I thought that was kind of cool that we see him at the end. You not knowing a ton about that character past the cartoons, or was it an exciting reveal at the end for you?
Yeah, I did not think we were going to get there as quickly as we did. I didn't even know if we would. I thought it might just be like a Gotham reference that didn't go anywhere. I thought that was cool because I think it's cool. Will you give me a hoorah?
No, no hoorah for you. I and I guess I don't know if Hal Jordan, like I assume he would have been in the Air Force, so why would he give a Marine's son a hoorah? I'm like a little bit. Where's Al?
Kids these days just want kudos and they're making birds. They're making green birds. He's like Nelly Furtado. I'm like a bird. I only fly away or I crush them into green dust.
Where's Al Pacino when you need him? I would like to see that the blind Al Pacino version of Hal Jordan
I'm gonna take
training.
a flamethrower to this place.
My boy just wants to try on the ring. I'm not like I used to be. Take this fresh $20 and let him drive it around the block. I know you only make X amount of commission. Here, this is more than you make all week. Let him try the ring around the block. So yeah, that's where we end here. But yeah, I think it's promising that the season's 8 episodes. It's promising that we're 2 episodes in. I think this feels right so far. Any wrap up thoughts on your side?
It does feel right. We've seen some different things in the previews. I'm curious what you think of maybe what might be coming.
There's the lady that looks like she's one of the Guardians in human form.
I
Like,
think that's Laura Dern,
okay,
like
God.
Jurassic Park Laura
Oh,
Dern.
God. Looks like she got beat with a shovel. But yeah, she reminds me of the fake character from It that was helping him out or whatever from Welcome
Okay.
to Derry. But yeah, I assume it's taking human form to kind of interview him or something. And I don't know if that's pre-interview, post-stop when we're getting that. I can't really remember what else we saw. What
We
jumped
see
out at
Guy
you?
Gardner, the Nathan Fillion bowl cut.
Yeah, I am gonna say his eye counts maybe a little higher than I'd like it to be in seeing how many episodes he would be appearing in. Maybe Guy Gardner, I've never been a big fan of in any format.
So is there the fandom of this traditionally, like all Sean Guy Gardner? Is it the Jason Todd Robin or something where,
I feel like he can be a little bit of that. Yes. I think
okay.
he is like that, especially for me. I am not a big Guy Gardner guy, but I think in Superman he was fun. In Peacemaker he was fun, but I definitely think it is a little Guy Gardner goes a long way. And then I don't know where we're going here. Are we going from here to if it's the True Detective buddy cop two-hander format? Was next season Jon Stewart and Guy Gardner question mark? I guess I question if that's kind of where we're heading there. But yeah, I we'll see where he
They haven't
goes.
officially committed to a season two, correct?
I don't believe so. And
But usually stuff like this, they just build for franchises no matter what.
and there's a lot of challenges here in that Paramount's potentially buying DC and Warner, but that's caught up in a court case now. So it's in limbo until they get a little further down the road. It's when a new owner takes over a team, they like to put in their own coaches and stuff. Supergirl did not do that well. I'm expecting Clayface to do well enough, but I don't expect Superman to do better than it did last movie. I expect it to maybe equal that, but is that enough to keep throwing money at a universe? I don't know how much was spent on the show. What are the ratings are going to be? I expect the show to be well received. I'm assuming it will get a season two if other stuff doesn't here.
Is there another The Batman on the way?
There is, but it's out of universe. So,
Okay.
but that's the Batman 2 that's in the Penguin verse. We kind of thought we were getting a Penguin season 2, maybe, but nothing's come to fruition there.
Right.
Maybe after the Batman 2, but I think some of the James Gunn stuff leaves that in limbo. And then I think James Gunn tried to get Matt Reeves to put his Batman in this universe just to make it easy. And that did not happen. So that's definitely out of universe pending other owners. And then also very weirdly, because you already had Affleck as Batman, like it's understood that Gunn wants to cast an older Batman. And there is the Batman movie that's supposed to be the next movie that we don't have a lot of info on, is supposed to be The Brave and the Bold, which is going to be, I don't know if it's Damian's son Robin or what, and an older Batman. And so, do we get that far? Is a question that I have that only Paramount and the Department of Justice can answer, I guess, for us now. But yeah, this feels like a show that would have a couple seasons in it, I would think, right, Dan?
It's hard to see it without Hal Jordan. So I don't know. Maybe there's a whole nother generation of another Green Lantern going through his internship down the line. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, we'll just have, I'm enjoying it for now. I don't want to try and plot out too far because I don't know that I have the legs to see that.
Yeah, who knows? I think I just even when we get shows that are limited, like I believe I did this with Derry, I just treat it as a season one, like it's gonna get more, but you never know.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is not promised for any of us, including the lanterns. So we'll see where it goes. All right, man. Thanks for wrapping this one up, and we'll catch it next week.
Sounds good. Have a good
Later.
one.